Good evening, Kirti. We can start.
Sure, David. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to welcome you all for this webinar on innovations in AI and automation for future-proof software testing. And myself, Kirti, I'm having around 12 plus years of experience into IT industry. And I'm currently working as a senior QA manager at Encora. I'm also a part of the innovation leaders team, where we strive to find a new innovative ways of futuristic scope of software testing. So let's get into the topic now and hope you'll have a good session. And for today, our agenda will be covering a small introduction about the topic, what we are taking up. And then we are going to talk about the how exactly this generative AI based QA varies between traditional QA to generative AI. And we will talk how, what are the different innovative ways where there to do this QA using generative AI, and how can we integrate AI into QA process. Also, we look into the different benefits and limitations, because even if we have good benefits, limitations also important to know. And finally, we will conclude with the Q&A session. So first, what we want to achieve with this topic, let's discuss about that. As part of small introduction, what I want to discuss is, as we all know, our software testers were the pillars of the software development lifecycle. Without us, there is no quality into the production, and we are the gatekeepers of the quality too. So in that situation, what if there is a bigger shift in the way the approach, how we are bringing in the quality to the product, right? So there was a little survey has been done by one of the organizations recently, and where they told that around 30% of IT industry's budget is being allocated for the software testers, which shows that how crucial is the software tester role in the IT industry. So now let's see, if they're spending 30% of their budget to the software testers, what if we are going to bring in more efficient, effective, and cost optimized approach in the software testing? Now let's talk about that kind of approach in this current session. And that is through generative AI. It is a cutting edge technology which can entirely transform your QA process. And we will discuss more about how to automate the repeated task of manual testers, how they are doing, and currently how they are doing versus how they will be doing in future. And how can we reduce the manual efforts, and how can we enhance the accuracy and speed of the testing process too. Now, let's see what makes the difference, what brings the difference between the generative AI over the manual testers. Let's take a small example of a manual tester, where a manual tester who is doing a regular activities of software testing, creation of test cases, analyzing the requirements, creating of test data, and bringing in more optimized test suite. And it's this regular activity, right? So where he will get bored at some point of time by doing a repeated task, like doing a regression testing, identifying the regression test cases. At some point of time, he may get bored with the, and he may get into a situation where he overlook the requirements, which is really important for the business too. It is not with the consciousness, it can be with unconsciousness, that he may not be aware that he's missing these requirements, right? Now, how can we avoid such kind of situations by using generative AI? Let's see how can we improvise our test case designing, or how can we improvise our forecasting analysis, how can we improvise our bug forecasting. Everything we will try to understand in this session. And now in this particular slide, we are going to discuss how exactly we are bringing in the difference between the traditional QA versus generative AI. First one is on test case generation. Why I am taking this as a first priority is, most of our QA will be spending our time, like I can say, if I say 20 hours of effort for my particular task, out of 20 hours, I'll be spending test case design alone for 10 hours. I can say 50% of effort is being spent on test case design time. It is really required to spend time on test case designing, because that's the place where we are ensuring the coverage of your application too. But how a human person can design the test cases, it is purely based on his skill set and based on his historical experience, that what type of projects they worked on, what type of domain they worked on, And only based on that kind of knowledge, they can create the test cases, which are limited to the scope of their knowledge. And at max, they can look into the requirements and they can write the test cases to cover the requirements, but he cannot think through beyond that. But coming to the generative AI is trained upon with the diverse test data sets, I can say. And it can pick up the test cases from these diverse test cases based on the requirements or scenarios that you are providing. And it can give you an exhaustive, comprehensive list of test cases. I will show you how can we generate those test cases in some time. Once I'm done with this slide, I will show you the difference. And apart from that, when we do a manual testing, we try to cover requirements along with our domain skill set experience test cases, and we will try to cover historical bugs related test cases to be covered along with the impacted areas. But generative AI, along with these things, it will also enhance the test cases by giving a good coverage by looking into the domain knowledge that it possesses by the trained data. It is already trained with a large chunk of data. From its trained data, it will look into the domain, similar kind of application, similar kind of websites, and it will try to bring in more comprehensive and more coverage to your test cases, which will enhance the quality of your output also. And the next one is a test data generation. This is one of the pain area. I can say it's a kind of challenge in pain area for all the manual testers, because there is a lack of test data due to the security reasons. It might be the personal data that business uses. Personal data we cannot use in our testing environment, and we cannot mimic the similar sort of data because of the volume of data that we have. But with generative AI, we can create high volumes of synthetic data, which is mimicking to the real world scenarios and which is very realistic to the real users data, but we are not exactly using the real users data. It will mimic everything same as your real users data, and we will try to improvise the breadth and depth of your testing. So this will give you a comprehensive testing coverage to your overall application, and there is no point of leakage in your production due to test data, because it is giving a diverse information by covering all different sort of conditions. It takes a combination of the scenarios, and it will try to come up with a different set of test data. And let's see what makes the difference between the in form of time. Like why I'm saying it's very time efficient is when we do with the manual testing, we spend time on requirement analysis, we spend time on test case designing, we spend time on test data generation, and after all this, we spend time on test summary generation also. But with AI, we can speed up all this process, whatever I have said till now, and we can quickly generate all sort of test cases, test data, and we can even automate these test cases which we got through this. I'll show you that also in some time. And coming to the scalability, whenever we are doing manual testing, if there is any change in the new requirement, usually what we do, we go through the requirement, we'll try to understand the impact of the current requirement to the previous existing application, and we have to come up with the change of test cases. Like we already have existing test cases, and we have to make changes to the existing test cases, and we have to enhance the new test cases also. Sorry. But using AI, it can be easily handled because it had a large volume of data inside it, and it can even understand the complex scenarios. Whenever you provide the enhanced requirement to it, it will try to understand your historical test cases, and it will suggest you the changes in the test cases, and it even can write the test cases for you. So the maintenance activity is completely taken care by your generative AI. And defect discovery. Usually, according to me, identifying a defect is purely knowledge or skill set of one individual person, because he tests the application from his own perspective. Irrespective of what other person is thinking, he can only think from his perspective when he's doing the execution. Because he has designed the test cases, he know what to coverage, and he can only cover those things. But with generative AI, it has immense knowledge of similar type of applications, existing applications in the production, and it will try to compare our application with the existing applications, and it will predict the type of bug that may occur in the current test cycle. And that will help us to give more coverage on the areas or components of your application, which is more defect prone, which is I can say this is a bigger step that we have to take as a testers, because identifying the defects right from the initial stage of test lifecycle will be very cost effective and will be very good approach of to be followed by any testers. And coming to the maintenance, as I said here, like usually in regular manual testing, we'll be keep updating our test cases, maintaining our test cases, and we'll be adjusting our test case as per the changes that's being given. But with AI, it will automatically analyze your existing test cases and it will prompt you if the test cases that was already existing needs any changes, or it has to go through a new completely your test cases are getting obsolete and new test cases are required to be new test cases to be added, or you have to edit the existing test cases and add few more test cases too. So how exactly AI is doing is it will try to adapt to your new requirement by looking into your existing software, and it will try to reduce the maintenance load. Whenever we are doing this, AI will try to mimic the real world scenarios to the existing applications and will prompt you whether we are on the right test coverage or we have to increase the coverage of our testing. So overall, I can say that traditional versus QA generative AI, the main difference comes is usually when we are doing manual testing, we are mostly with a biased nature, we'll go and test the application, which will make us to overlook certain real world scenarios. We may not think about some kind of edge case scenarios or how the end user might be thinking. But with AI generated models, they are more accurate because they are trying to mimic the real world scenarios, and it is giving us more effective testing with a quality output and faster to the market too. Now, let me show you how exactly we can achieve this. Now, right now I'm using a generative AI, which is a chat GPT. Okay. So here I'm prompting to chat GPT to analyze my requirements and forecast the defects due to inadequate requirement coverage. This will make sure that if my requirements are having enough amount of test data or not. Also here I'm giving my code requirements. I request everyone, while you're giving your requirements, make sure you're not giving any kind of sensitive information to ChatGPT, which will lead to security or compliance issues. So make sure that whatever data you're giving to ChatGPT or any kind of generative AI should not have any sensitive information. Here I have given my user story in a very generic way, and I'm asking ChatGPT to analyze it and give me the data. Here my requirement is very simple. I'm trying to enhance my checkout experience. Let's see what ChatGPT give me the response. It says that based on the requirement I have provided, it finds the following gaps in my requirement. There is no proper order summary, and there is no guest checkout. Limitations were not being identified, and payment options having ambiguity, which is good, and error handling. Error handling is not taken care, and order editing doesn't have clarity. And it also gives what is being missing also. Like here, your payment option is ambiguity. You can read through this. The requirement to integrate with multiple payment gateways is good, but it's rather vague. It doesn't specify how many of which type of digital wallet should be supported, and it doesn't mention how the system should handle the cases where the payment methods is temporarily unavailable. So it is trying to understand what happens in the worst case scenarios too. What are the different types of payment gateways to be covered? And what if some of these gateways were not available? What option should be shown to the customer? That was not given in the requirement. Usually when we are developing our requirements, we won't think about all these things. We just say that, okay, in our checkout experience, we have to include the payment gateway. We know that we have to include the payment gateway, and they can tell that we have to use a credit card or debit card or UPI, but they won't specify what type of credit card to be included to. So these are the gaps. These gaps will be analyzed by the ChatGPT and will give you back what are the things being missed. Here, let's pause here on ChatGPT and we'll go back to the slides, and I'll show you what exactly the difference comes here. Now, the different innovative ways of QA via generative AI. This is a clear visual representation how generative AI can automate overall of your software testing activities. We can automate the test plan creation, first thing, and we can automate the requirement analysis. We can automate the test design automation. We can automate the test data automation, and we can forecast the risk. I'll show you in a bit. And we can even do the test automation, and we can create the summary out of it. Out of this, as we just spoke, how to automate the requirement analysis via generative AI. We just seen in ChatGPT, we have given the requirement to the ChatGPT. We have done the first step, and the second step is taken care by ChatGPT. It has analyzed the requirement and it has come up with the list of differences, right? But how exactly these differences been identified by ChatGPT? It uses the natural language processing, like it will read our requirement with a natural English language, and in it will interpret the requirement, analyze it, and identify the gaps in requirements by doing few different types of analysis. The first type is ambiguity analysis. So it will try to find all the ambiguities in your requirement. If there is any clear, inconsistent, or inappropriate requirements that needs to be addressed, it will try to analyze that, and it will try to address that with an action item to the user. And the next one is similarity analysis. It will try to analyze your requirement with a similar application or website in the like a production environment in the other websites, and it will try to analyze the requirements and say what can be adapted to your requirements to make it more approachable to your end customers, or more attractive to your end customers too. And the third one is the impact analysis. AI will analyze your test requirements and will come up with the impacted areas too. As we have seen in the generative AI output, we are seeing that the payment options are ambiguity, right? Or guest checkout limitations. So it is coming up with a list of limitations or list of options that being missed in your requirement. And it is helping us to find the inadequate requirements where exactly we have to make the changes in our requirements. Here, the order summary inadequacies, you can clearly read that the requirement displays an order summary page is clear. However, it does not specify what happens if item in order becomes unavailable. This is a very common scenario, happens in any e-commerce website, right? Whenever there is an item in your checkout cart, if by the time when you're adding, it might be available, but by the time of your purchase, it can go unavailable. So what happens during this activity, this particular moment when we try to place an order? That was not being clearly given your requirement, which is a miss from the requirement. So this kind of gap analysis being given by your ChatGPT. Now, what I will do is I'll just go through this and I will try to ask ChatGPT to create me the list of test cases too. Okay, so it will identify the key components and test cases, right? So it has identified me the key components of where I'm having a gap. What I will do is, first thing, I will ask ChatGPT to cover all these things and give me a correct requirement. Can you please enhance the requirement by implementing the gaps identified? Let's see what ChatGPT gives us. So this is my updated user story. It is giving me all the acceptance criteria based on the gaps it has identified. And it is giving me new acceptance criteria, which has to be implemented in my user story. Okay. So this is the improved checkout process, and it is segregating my user story into different sections, and it is providing the acceptance criteria for each section, and it will help me out by fulfilling all the gaps. Here you can see integrating with multiple payment gateways, including at least 3 types of credit cards, and it's giving me what type of credit cards to be used also. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and 3 digital wallets also, and what type of digital wallets to be accepted to. So this is a good thing. It is giving a more clear, concise requirement, which will help any manual testers to be picked up with the actual requirement expectation from the business users. And it also done the risk assessment. If you have seen this in our previous response, ChatGPT has given the risk in the security requirements. It is saying that the requirement don't specifically mention how users' personal payment information should be protected. So this is a kind of risk, and it is giving the error handling also. It is a kind of risk. The requirement is not saying what happens if the transaction is getting failed. It's a kind of risk which has to be addressed by the business users before getting into the development phase. By doing this kind of requirement analysis, we were able to identify the gaps right from the beginning of the requirement analysis phase itself, and which will help the development team to develop the product with the updated requirements, with the concise requirements also. And finally, we got the report. Report is nothing but the output of your user story. Now, how can we automate the test plan creation with generative AI? Now, we got updated requirement from the generative AI, right? Now, the process starts by feeding system with a user story or software requirements. We already have our requirement updated over here. So, we no need to create feed a requirement again to the chat GPT. Now, our next step will be like, let's see how exactly this AI analysis is taken on the test plan creation. Okay. So usually how this happens is it will try to analyze the requirement, and it will try to predict the futuristic scope of this change in requirement in the existing application, and will come up with a new set of test cases. And it will come up with a new set of test scenarios which may have impact on the existing components. It doesn't, like, whenever there is a change on existing application, not only the new features being implemented, there might be impact on the existing application also, right? Now, our AI will take care of that kind of risk analysis, and it will come up with a good coverage of test scenarios to be covered, which has to be added as part of your test plan. And it will compile these elements into a test plan. Like, these test cases will be added into your test plan, but how exactly this Chat GPT knows what format of test data, test plan your team is following, right? It doesn't have that knowledge. So usually any kind of generative AI are the trained models. So if you can give your historical data to say what all the things should be included into your test plan, like you have to have a test strategy in your test plan. You should include a scope, introduction. You should have different types of environments to be included. If you can provide that kind of information to the chat GPT with the multiple test plans to it, and make sure that you want to have a similar kind of test plan to be developed for your futuristic features, it will try to analyze that test plan and create a similar test plan for your future in an automated way. Once it finds the differences in these requirements and learn the data and identify the test scenarios and perform the risk analysis, it will try to generate your test plan based on the format or template you have given. Usually, if you're not prompting generative AI to which format or template you want to see, it will take the most used common template from the like a web world, and it will bring back a test plan for you. So it all learns from the historical data. We all know that generative AI learns from our historical data, and it creates a test plan out of it. We are creating a test plan using generative AI, but without human intervention, without reviewing by the QA or QA lead, we cannot approve the test plan, because all these generative AIs were developed on the training given by the manual person, with the data being given to the test data, given to the generative AIs. So there might be a situation where it had a biased knowledge, and it is it's taking the decision based on the biased knowledge too. So make sure to review it and approve the test plan. And once the test plan is created, we are good to go. Let me show you how can we create the test plan now. Now we already have a chat GPT with a requirement. Now let me ask it to create a test plan. Can you create a test plan? With the summary and subsections. I'm not mentioning what sections I need, but usually a good prompt will give you a good output. You have to provide what type of sections you are expecting in the output and everything, so that it will generate the test plan as per the output you are expecting to. Here I didn't specify that, so it's just giving me a generic test plan, which we can reuse it for creating our actual test plan too. You can see it here. It is giving an introduction, test items, like it's saying that order summary page we are going to do, order editing page, checkout options, and we are trying to do a multiple payment options. And features to be tested, it is giving very clearly what are the features that we are planning to test as part of the current testing. Let's see what exactly it gives after that. And you can see features not to be tested. Here it was very clear that this test plan does not cover the aspect of platforms such as product listing, PDP page, PLP page. We are not going to validate. And in the approach of testing, what is different approaches we are following? It's like we are doing a functionality testing, or we are doing it manually, or automated testing methods. It was very detailed enough. But why I said human intervention is required is, in this case, you can clearly see that it is saying that manual and automated. But did we tell that we are going to do automation in this? So as a manual person, manual QA lead, you have to go and review your test plan and ensure whether the test plan generated by generative AI is right or wrong. Okay. And it even covers the environments needed, but I didn't give the environments which was I'm planning to give. I'm planning to test it. So make sure that you're going to review this and give a correct input so that you'll get a correct output also. If you don't want to review this like in a high level, you can give a proper input. Create me a test plan where I want to test my test environments of QA and UAT, and I want to cover so and so requirements. And I don't want to cover the regression testing as part of this test plan. And it's purely of manual testing. So based on this prompt, it will generate your test plan. Okay. And coming to the automated test design, how can we automate the test design by using generative AI? Till now, we have seen that we were able to clearly understand how the requirements being analyzed and how the test plan is being created. But in both the cases, it is indirectly looking into the different test approaches, what a tester has to do, right? It is looking into the end user's perspective and bringing up the differences and changes into your requirements and your test plan. Now, similarly, in test case designing, generative AI will play a crucial role. Why I'm saying this is, it has an ability to do a broader coverage by analyzing the requirements, and it will also give you a clear prioritization on the risk modules. By making the changes on this particular feature, what are the different modules are under risk, and it will prioritize it for testing, which will help a manual tester to make a decision whether to test that in the first attempt and may ensure that it is a defect free or not. But how is this possible? How exactly this generative AI is understanding this? So we call this as a dynamic adaptation. Why I'm saying it's a dynamic adaptation is, once you have your requirement, you will be feeding your requirement to the ChatGPT or any generative AI, and then you got your test cases. Now you are bringing in a difference into your test requirement, and you are going back and giving it to the generative AI on the updated requirement. It will automatically analyze your previous requirement with the current requirement. It will identify the gaps and the differences between the previous to the current version, and it will automatically generate your test cases. The dynamic adaptation culture is inbuilt for any generative AIs. And it will try to understand and continuously learn from the feedback that user is providing. Now we got the test plan created, right? What if I give a feedback to the ChatGPT saying that your test plan is not clear and concise, and I want more clear test data? It will update the test plan according to my prompt, and it will, the next time whenever I'm prompting, it will give me the updated version of my test plan instead of looking into the older version of the test plan. That kind of continuous learning is there in the generative AI. Also, it had a predictive analysis feature, which is really good, because whenever we are doing some requirement analysis, we will try to predict a defect to some extent, but not to a complete analysis taking care for the 6 months data or 1 year data, right? But with generative AI, we have a feature where we can give a historical data to the ChatGPT or any generative AI, and we can ask the generative AI to provide me the test design based on the predictive analysis it can give me. So what it will do is, it will read through your data, your historical bugs, your historical requirements, and it will analyze them and bring in the change in the test cases in such a way that the broader coverage will be given for the more error prone areas or the components of your application, which is very important for any software industry where we have to concentrate more on the error prone areas. So let me show you how exactly we can create test data over here, test cases over here. You create me the test cases for above requirements with test. I'm saying that, can you create me the test cases for above requirements with in a tabular form? I'll say it should be in a tabular format so that I can have it in any kind of test management tool. Tabular format with test ID and test scenario, summary, test steps to be followed, and what else we need? Test data to be used, environment to be for where we are testing it, along with priority. Priority of test case is important and expected result is important. You can give a sequence of these columns based on your template, your own templates. Okay. And once I click on this, I'll get a list of test cases in a tabular format. You can see that it's writing the test cases on behalf of a manual tester. It is creating a scenario and summary of it, and it's giving a test steps, test data to be used, and in which environment we have to test it, and whether the priority is high, low, and everything. And here the expected result is very clear. This order result summary page displays with the correct details, like a. And here this real-time inventory, it is checking whether the real-time inventory check is being taken care by the application or not. As we were thinking of it, right? Like add item to the cart, change the inventory of the item from the backend to 0, and proceed to checkout. Now what happens? Actually in front end, it has to prompt the user that item is not available. So it is validating whether that particular item is not available. Prompt is shown to the in checkout page or not. So this kind of test case will be created. Now you can see that we have an exhaustive list of test cases of 9. Now, if I click on continue generating, it will further dive deep into the requirements and it will generate me furthermore list of test cases. In that way, you can even ask ChatGPT to create test cases for your performance testing, accessibility testing, visual testing, and along with all this, you can write a separate test suite for regression testing. It all depends upon how exactly you prompt your system. Okay. And now let's see how can we automate the test data creation using generative AI. We all know that whenever we are trying to do a manual testing, we are trying to create a small volumes of test data. Just like if I say there is a credit card, I'll take one credit card number or dummy credit card number and I'll try to validate it. But what if there are multiple permutation combinations to be validated while performing the testing? That has to be taken care, right? Like otherwise there might be leakages to the production due to the test data unavailability or test data not being validated while during our testing. Okay. And usually doing with generative AI, what it will do is it will mimic the real-time scenario, real world data, and try to create a synthetic data out of it, and it will generate me the a list of test data to be used. For example, I'll go to ChatGPT and I'll ask ChatGPT, create me a list of test data, to be used for validating different payment methods by using permutations and combination of various test data. Let's see what kind of test data it will prompt me. Here I can see that it's not giving me the right response, right? It is giving me that 16 digits should be used, American Express card should be used. I'm just clicking on stop generating and I'm going to edit it to say that give me test data matrix, give me the output in form of test data matrix. So this is an easy way. Usually when we are doing manual testing also, we usually create a form, test data in form of matrix, right? Now let's see how ChatGPT generated. See, now it's creating a tabular format to say what type of test data to be used. It's using credit card and card valid type as Visa, and it's giving card number, giving some expiry date and CVV number, and expected result is payment is successful. Similarly, it is using credit card with a Visa type, and it's taking the expired information. Okay, 1221, which is expired, which is expecting to fail. So in this way, it is giving me a different type of permutation combination of scenarios for credit card versus Visa, credit card versus MasterCard, and credit card versus Amex card, digital wallet for PayPal. Different informations it is trying to analyze and bringing me the expected results, what I have to see in the UI also. In this way, we can create n number of test data for as per your needs. Here I'm just taking a generic information for the creating of credit card information or any digital wallet. Similarly, you can do it for any user creation scenarios or any kind of e-commerce website related stuff where we need a n number of user details. Like if we need a n number of emails along with a username and password, you can ask ChatGPT to create a matrix with this, and it will create you a multiple dummy emails along with a username and password, which you can directly fetch into your Excel sheets, and you can use it for your testing purpose. And how can you do risk forecasting via generative AI? Because when we are doing a manual testing, we do risk forecasting right from the test planning level itself. So every phase of testing lifecycle, risk forecasting takes the highest priority. Without risk forecasting, if we go and do our testing directly, we will fail as a tester because we can get unpredicted risk at the end of your testing, which may lead to high cost and high rework efforts is high. So let's see how can we do a risk forecasting. I'm saying that I'm asking ChatGPT as per above requirements. Can you please forecast in my testing and to improve the coverage? Give me in format of tabular form. Content, tabular content. So what it will do is it will analyze the requirement and it will forecast the bugs based on the domain knowledge it already had. Now it is saying that one bug can be its incorrect display of item details, quantities or pieces or discounts, and which is severity of high. It is even giving me the severity of the defect. Even you can go and ask ChatGPT using this severity, like if it is a mode blocker or critical issues, create the test cases for it, because we have to give a good coverage of your test cases based on the defects it has predicted to. Right now, it is slow because of the internet bandwidth issues, because we are going on with session with a video call and it's taking time. Otherwise, it will be very fast and we'll get the output within seconds. And now, one way is to give your requirement and asking ChatGPT to predict the risk. And this other way is you can give the input of your test cases, the manually created test cases to ChatGPT, and you can ask ChatGPT what kind of risk it can predict by looking into the requirements and the test cases we have designed. It will read through your requirements and it will read through your test cases, and it will get back with the appropriate output saying what all the test coverage is being missed from your test cases and what exactly to be added to your test cases to give your 100% of coverage to your application. So that is another kind of risk analysis that is being taken care by the ChatGPT. And the third one is, like usually we will be doing a bug forecasting by using a trend analysis, bug trend analysis. Any QA managers or QA leads, what they will do, they will take the historical bugs of 6 months or 7 months information or 1 year of information, and they'll try to create a heat map out of it, seeing what components are more defect prone and how many defects being reoccurred in the similar component and similar kind of defects being reoccurred, right? Similar kind of analysis is being taken care by ChatGPT to analyze the requirements, analyze the test cases, and bring in the list of test cases to be covered, which is a high defect prone areas. It will read through your bugs. It will understand the bug trend, and it will tell you this is the most buggy area which you have to concentrate while you are perform your execution. And coming to the test execution, as I said, we can automate the execution via generative AI. Why I'm saying we can automate it is when you integrate this generative AI into your CI/CD pipeline, you can trigger your test cases automation. Like you already had an automation test suite, and whenever there is a new feature being added, by triggering this generative AI, it will adapt to the new requirement and will create the test script on top of it, and your CI/CD pipeline will try to execute the test case and will come up with the outcome immediately. Like we can create a code snippets, and that snippet can be integrated to your existing frameworks, or if you don't have a framework at all, the automation framework itself is not available, you can create the new framework with the help of generative AI by using a right prompts. And how can we automate the test summary creation via generative AI? Now we have seen the requirement analysis, test case designing, bug forecasting, test plan creation. Now everything is done. Execution is also done. You have all your bugs ready, and your few of these bugs were fixed and few of them were not fixed. Now, how can you ask ChatGPT to create test summary report out of it? For that, what we can do is, here I'm not giving any kind of information. For example, I'll take the copy of this information. Okay, the bugs which it has given. I'll tell to it. Here I can see there is one critical bug. I'm saying to ChatGPT, create me a test summary report where the critical bug is still in open state, is still open, and couple of my test cases were failed because of this critical bug. Okay. Anyway, I have the bug summary report in the top right. So I'm asking ChatGPT to use it. Create test summary report from above bugs. Let's see what ChatGPT will give me the update output. See, it's giving introduction. The summary provides a summary of testing activities and final test results to improve the checkout experience. It still remembers my requirement. See that. And test items were under order summary, order editing capabilities, guest checkout option, multiple payment options. It has analyzed my test cases. There are 9 test cases. Out of it, 6 were passed and 2 were failed, and 1 test case is blocked. And now, out of this failed case, 1 is blocked. Like out of these 2, 1 is completely blocked, and because of that, the other one is failed. And you can see the defect overview. There are 11 defects being reported. Out of it, 1 is open and all other closed, and 1 critical is open here. And here it is given clearly what is the open defect summary. It is telling me that this critical bug is open, and the blocked test cases are, these 2 test cases were blocked, and the conclusion is, it is even giving the conclusion and the recommendations out of it. With this conclusion recommendation, you can make a decision by reading through this information. But make sure that the generative AI conclusion and decision makings may be biased. So make sure you are completely reading through these test cases, understanding it, and ensuring that summary report which was generated out of this is appropriate and in right. Okay, don't completely rely on the generative AI also. It provides you a good conclusion and good recommendations, but ensure you are reviewing it and getting back to your management saying that this is the final summary report. Review of your summary is really important, and don't miss that. And remember one thing, whatever we are discussing, generative AI is the best approach to follow, but it's not a replacement for human. Just remember that, because many people will think that, okay, if we have generative AI, it might be replacing the complete human. It's not like that. A human interference is completely important at every phase what we discussed till now, to understand it, prompt it correctly, and get the output also. Without the proper prompt, the output will not be correct. Now let's see how can we integrate this AI into QA process. any kind of generative AI, how exactly it will understand the interactions of human is when you say hello to it, it will analyze it into its understanding binary language, and it will get back the to the human with a hi, with the human readable context, like a natural language processing. So even any kind of GPT AIs are using natural language processing, which is making our life easier, where we are not techies, right? We are not technical people like developers. We have to understand, we are good at English, and we can prompt the chat GPT with English, and we can understand the response given by chat GPT, which is in English. Now let's see how exactly we can do this. The integration of AI into QA process is not simple process. Please remember that the effectiveness of your AI will always depend upon the quality of diversity of data that you have trained on, like the test data that it is being trained. We all know that ChatGPT is trained on high efficient data, good quality data. That's the reason we are seeing good quality output. What if we are taking any generative AI which has come into newly into the market, which is not completely trained on the quality diverse data? If you take that kind of generative AI and if you try to implement that in your testing process, we fail as a testers, because it will not have diverse coverage of your test cases. It will not understand what are the edge case scenarios it has to cover, because lack of knowledge on the domain, lack of knowledge on the application. And so what we can say is effective AI training for high quality and diversity data takes a crucial role for integrating AI into the QA process. And coming to the continuous monitoring and fine tuning of AI algorithms, remember one thing: once we choose what type of generative AI we are trying to use, it had some AI algorithms running behind it, right? It purely depends upon the requirements that you are feeding in. The effectiveness of that algorithm purely depends upon what type of requirements you're feeding to it. And whenever this new software is getting evolved, the AI algorithm has to be retuned or refined for adapting to the new requirements. Don't think that once we are good with this algorithm, we can continuously use the same algorithm forever. It all depends upon what type of test requirements you are getting in, what type of softwares that you are going to validate, and if that particular generative AI has capability of doing that or not. You have to ensure that it does it. It does that adaptability. It does it that knowledge also. And coming to the addressing ethical consideration, bias detection, fairness. This is also one of the important criteria. We have to make sure that, as I said, all these trained models of generative AI are with the human interactions only. Like what if the decision given by generative AI is biased because of the human interactions being done? This biased results can lead to unfair prioritization of your test cases. Might be instead of giving the payment test case as priority, it should have given the UI level difference as a high priority. This is completely because of the biased interactions given by the users, and it can give you incorrect results also. So ensure that we are having a good test data to be trained on your generative AIs. And detecting and mitigating this kind of biased results is also more important, which will help the generative AI to improvise itself. As I said, generative AIs will always learn from its feedback, right? Whenever you see this kind of biased information from generative AI, you can prompt back to the generative AI saying that this information is not right or appropriate, and this had a biased information. It will correct itself for the next time. Okay. And coming to the benefits and limitations, we know that till now you should have understood that how efficient is this generative AI is in improvising the quality assurance process, and all how effectively it is improvising at every phase of your test life cycle, right? We have seen it is writing the test cases immediately once you provide your requirements. It's performing the analysis of your requirements. It's creating your test cases, which is completely improvising your efficiency of your testers, so that the manual testers can spend their productivity elsewhere, bringing in more innovation in a different aspects of your software development life cycle. And it provides you high quality output also. You can see that the quality is being improvised day by day in generative AIs also, with the diverse information it is being reading from the different users interactions, right? And we are going to get high quality with the edge case scenario coverage and end users perspective coverage of scenarios. And obviously we can reduce the cost because we were able to generate the test cases as fast as possible. We were able to generate the summary reports as fast as possible. And we were able to predict the bugs in the initial phase of the life cycle, which is a high savers for the costing. And it will reduce the manual effort, and where the human resource cost is reduced, as well as the time span is reduced, which is in turn saving your dollar value. And obviously the accelerating to market is improvised, because with this manual test cases being automated using generative AI, the code snippets are readily available from generative AI. It's just like you have to adapt to that code snippet and get into your integrate into your existing framework. With this, the automation is making faster. CI/CD pipeline will bring in more faster to your product development and deployment in the market, and accelerated to the market will be improvised. And as I said, there are very good benefits out of generative AI, but there are limitations to accuracy and reliability. As I said, this accuracy and reliability will be completely dependent on what type of data you have trained on your generative AI. So you have to be very careful on what type of generative AI you're picking for your software testing process, and how effective it in your application also. If the generative AI which you have chosen is not relevant to your software application, then the accuracy and reliability cannot be guaranteed. And sometimes we have seen there are situations where the generative AI provides you the output, but the output will not have an explanation, detailed explanation why it is thinking of this risk. In that situations, we cannot completely rely on the generative AIs. And dependency and over reliance. Why we are saying that there is a dependency as a limitation is, we have seen now in each phase of software testing lifecycle, we can integrate the AI. You can understand how a QA tester is completely getting dependent on this generative AI process and losing the actual logical thinking behind it, right? So make sure that we are not completely dependent on it, because the generative AI is a trained model. It is not thinking logically by itself. And training data limitations. I can say that the generative AIs are having a huge data volume, huge volumes of data, but for training this, there are lot of challenges behind it and lots of cost induced into it. Like they cannot give a large amount of data to it for training, because of the limitations that it has, because of the security reasons, because of the compliances issues, and there are other limitations too. So make sure that whatever the output you are seeing from generative AIs had limited output, it's not complete output. And handling complex and specialized questions. Each generative AI has its own limitation of how many characters of input it is taking and how many characters output it is generating. So make sure that it cannot handle the complex scenarios in case if it is a first time occurrence into the web world. In that situation, it cannot handle that particular situation. And if it is having a huge amount of requirement, like a huge amount of documentation, we cannot give it to ChatGPT in a single stretch. We have to give it in chunks of data, and we have to ask ChatGPT to remember it and bring back the data and analyze our questions too. It's a big challenge and tedious work to do also. And data privacy and security issue, as we have to train the ChatGPT with any generative AI with a huge amount of volume of data, there we have to be very careful that we are not inputting any secured or sensitive information to it. And bias and ethical concerns, as I said, as this is a trained information, the results or decisions that are coming out of it will be biased based on the trained information it had. Human intervention is really important for making a right decision instead of completely depending on the generative AI. And as I said, it's completely human trained one. The lack of creative and logical thinking is missed from the generative AIs. So make sure that this is a limitation on generative AI, and human intervention is important. As I said, on all the phases of test life cycle, we are not replacing the human with generative AI. We are utilizing generative AI to bring in more efficiency and effectiveness to your current testing world. And the final conclusion is, enabling the AI into your organization will deliver high quality software at a faster pace. As we move forward, the integration of AI into software testing will continue to evolve, and we will have a new possible ways to bring in more efficiency and innovation into your software testing lifecycle. But remember one thing, we are not replacing humans with generative AI. We are trying to utilize generative AI to improvise the efficiency and effectiveness of your software testing. Any questions from anyone?
Yeah, we have a question, Kirti.
Yeah.
Let me read the question out to you.
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried AI to generate automation code like Python, robot framework, or Selenium?
Yes.
And this was asked by Anil Kumar.
Yes, we can. For example, I will take an example of create me a Python code snippet for user creation scenario in a website. We can take any website, right? Like let's take ibibo.com. It will provide me what exactly is trying to do it, and then it will try to create me a code snippet out of it. You can see it. It is creating me full code snippet. If you wanted to do with a Selenium, with a Java, it can replace it. You can ask with Python with Selenium, it will give you. If you want to create a robot framework, you can specifically mention. It all depends upon the prompt that you give in. Are you clear with this? You can see the code snippet has been created. You had to just replace the actual path of it with the correct Chrome driver. And you had to create you had to input your username and password in a dynamic way, or if you want to give it in a dynamic way, or if you want to give it in a form of fields, you can try it. You can give your test data with this instead of test email at gmail.com. You can give a right test email. Any questions from anyone?
I think that's it for now, Kirti.
Okay.
And
thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for that wonderful webinar. And the live examples were really awesome. Thank you so much, Kirti.
Thank
and
you.
thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.